All right, so today we're diving deep into a case that really shook up Phoenix back in 2017,
Yeah.
the case of Cleophus Cooksey Jr.
Oh, yeah.
And, we want to look into this spree killing that took the lives of 9 people in just a really short amount of time, like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So to do that, we've gone and we've pulled court documents and news reports from that time
Okay.
to give everyone listening the clearest picture we can.
It's definitely a wild case.
Yeah.
Lots of twists and turns.
Yeah.
Even just starting with Cooksey himself.
Right.
Just who he is.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, he was born in 1982.
Okay.
And by 2001, so pretty young guy.
Yeah.
He already had a manslaughter and armed robbery conviction.
Wow.
And was actually released from prison just a few months before the spree began in July 2017.
So that kind of sets the stage for a really terrifying few weeks for Phoenix.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and there's actually another layer to his story
Oh, okay.
that I find so interesting. He's actually the grandson of Royal Cooksey, who is a very prominent civil rights leader in Tucson.
Huh.
It just, I don't know, it adds another layer to the story, doesn't it?
It really does. Like, on the one hand, you have this family history of fighting for justice,
Right.
and then you have these horrible acts.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder about everything in between.
Yeah.
So let's get into some of those tragic events.
Yeah.
We've got this timeline that we've pulled together of these murders.
Right.
And it all starts November 2017 with Andrew Remillard, who was 27,
Okay.
and Parker Smith, who was 21.
Oh, wow.
They were found shot to death in a car.
I remember this one.
Yeah, and what's so striking is right off the bat, we have this violence
Yeah.
with no known motives.
Yeah, just senseless.
Yeah, and we looked into, their stories and everything, and
Uh-huh.
Andrew actually left behind a wife and child.
Oh,
It's just, it really emphasizes the devastation
Yeah.
that spreads out from these crimes.
the ripple effect is huge. Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. And then on December 2nd, we have Salim Richards, who was 35.
Okay.
And something that's important here is that Cooksey actually stole a Glock 9mm handgun from him.
Ah,
So that stolen Glock actually becomes a really crucial piece of evidence.
I was going to say, I bet.
As reports indicate, it links him to several of the other murders.
Wow.
On December 11th, Jesus Real, who was 25, was shot dead in Avondale.
Okay.
And this is where we start to see some of those personal connections appear.
Right.
Because Jesus was the brother of Cooksey's ex-girlfriend.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
targeted, maybe?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, was this targeted? Was this random? Unfortunately, we don't have a clear answer.
Yeah.
And then just 2 days later, on December 13th, LaTorri Beckford, who was 29,
Okay.
was killed. And again, we don't have a clear motive.
Yeah,
It feels
okay.
like things are escalating.
Yeah, the boulder, isn't it?
Yeah, and it doesn't stop.
No?
On December 16th, 2 more victims, Christopher Cameron, who was 21, and Maria Villanueva, who was 43.
Oh, my God.
Christopher was shot in Glendale and left behind an 11-month-old son and a pregnant partner.
Oh, wow.
And Maria was allegedly raped by Cooksey before she was killed.
That's awful.
And she left behind 2 daughters. It's just, the brutality
Yeah.
is unimaginable.
It's just staggering.
It's hard to even process.
Yeah.
And as we go through these details, it's important to remember these aren't just names.
Right.
These were people with families and hopes and dreams.
Absolutely.
And to have their lives cut short like this,
It's just
hard to comprehend.
Yeah, you see this pattern of violence.
Yeah.
But no why.
Yeah, that why is so elusive.
What could lead someone to do this?
Yeah, it's chilling.
It really is.
And then the story takes another turn on December 17th
Okay.
with the final 2 victims, his own mother, Renee Cooksey, who was 56,
Why?
and his stepfather, Edward Nunn, who was 54.
Oh, my goodness.
He was arrested at the scene covered in blood.
So that brings us to the arrest.
Yeah.
And while we still don't know why, investigators were working really hard to connect the dots
Yeah.
and gather all that evidence to put together what happened.
Right. So Cooksey is in custody now.
Right.
And now the focus shifts to gathering evidence,
Yeah.
building the case against him.
Right.
So what were investigators looking at?
Well, they were looking at a whole bunch of stuff. Physical evidence,
Okay.
forensic analysis,
Mm-hmm.
the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Ballistics evidence actually linked that stolen Glock
Okay.
to several of the crime scenes.
Wow.
And DNA testing connected Cooksey to some of the others as well.
Oh, wow.
Plus, they found a bunch of stolen items
Okay.
from different victims in his possession.
So it sounds like a pretty solid case, right?
It does seem that way, right?
Yeah, you got all these pieces coming together
Yeah.
to paint a pretty clear picture.
It's not always so straightforward
Okay.
as it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we have all this evidence that points to him,
Right.
there are actually some legal battles brewing
Oh, really?
surrounding the ballistics evidence.
Oh, wow.
So it turns out there's been some debate about how reliable
Okay.
the techniques are that they used to match the bullets and casings
Okay.
to that stolen Glock.
Interesting.
So that's actually been part of the reason
Oh, wow.
why the trial's been delayed.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You know, we often hear about forensic evidence,
Right.
but we don't really hear about how complex it can be
Exactly.
to actually prove it
Yeah.
in court.
It's a lot more than just who did it.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, how do you prove it?
Exactly.
And the road to justice in this case has been a long one.
Yeah.
Cooksey's trial has actually been delayed multiple times,
Oh, wow.
and it's currently scheduled for April 2025.
So that's what, almost 8 years?
Crazy,
Right
right?
to the crime?
It's a long time.
That's got to be so frustrating for the families.
Absolutely. I
Right.
can't imagine just waiting for that closure for so long.
And this story isn't just about Cooksey.
Right.
Remember, there were 3 women
Oh,
who were
yeah.
also arrested in connection to the case. That's right. Desiree Coronado, who was 23,
Okay.
and sisters Griselda and Liliana Vasquez, who were 24 and 26.
Right.
They were charged with hindering prosecution and tampering with evidence.
Yeah.
And get this, Coronado was actually the mother of Jesus Real's child.
Oh, wow.
And Liliana was Cooksey's ex-girlfriend.
That's a lot of connections.
It's like a tangled web of relationships.
It adds a whole other layer to this whole thing.
It does.
It really shows how this kind of crime spree
Yeah.
affects so many people.
Right.
Like way beyond the immediate victims.
Yeah.
There's just a ton of trauma
Right.
and unanswered questions.
So it makes you wonder, what did they know?
Right. Were they involved?
Did they help him cover his tracks?
What were they thinking?
What was their motivation?
I don't know. It's really hard to say
Yeah.
with the information that we have.
Right.
It'll probably come out more during the trial,
Yeah.
but it is really sad.
Yeah.
You know, these women, they were connected to him through these personal relationships and kids.
Yeah.
And now they're facing serious legal consequences.
Yeah, it just adds another layer of tragedy
It really does.
to this whole thing.
To an already awful situation.
And it emphasizes that while Cooksey's at the center of this,
Right.
there are a lot of other people whose lives have been changed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
By his actions.
It's a good reminder that these crimes don't just happen
yeah.
like in isolation, you know?
Right.
They have huge ripple effects on families and communities
Yeah.
and even the legal system.
It's easy to get caught up in all the details
Right.
of the crimes and the evidence and the legal stuff.
Yeah.
But we can't forget about the human beings
Oh, for sure.
at the heart of all of this.
The victims.
Yeah, the victims and their families.
Yeah, they're the ones who suffered the most.
Right.
It's unimaginable.
They're the ones who have to rebuild their lives
Yeah.
after this.
And that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
And even with the arrests.
And the upcoming trial. There
Yeah.
are just so many questions
How many?
that are still unanswered.
Like, why?
Yeah, why did he do this?
What could possibly drive someone
Exactly.
to commit these acts?
Was it rage?
Was it mental illness?
Was it a combination of things?
Yeah, we talked about his past
Yeah.
with that previous conviction.
Right, manslaughter and armed robbery.
Does that give us any clues?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
The why is really the most perplexing
Yeah.
and haunting part
It is.
of this whole case.
The brutality, the seemingly random victims.
Yeah.
It's unsettling.
It really is. And to add to that,
Yeah.
Phoenix authorities have actually said
Okay.
that there's a distinct possibility of more victims out there.
This is a scary thought. What makes them think that?
They haven't really released a lot of details.
Okay.
You know, they're probably trying to protect the investigation,
Right.
not jeopardize the trial,
Yeah.
but it is possible
Right.
that there are other families out there that don't even know yet.
That their loved ones were victims.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, carrying that grief and that uncertainty
Absolutely.
for all these years.
Yeah, not knowing the truth.
It's a reminder that even when you catch the suspect,
Yeah,
this search for answers can go on for years and years.
it's true. And sometimes those answers never come.
Yeah, it's unsettling to think there might be more to this story, you know,
It really is.
than we even know. But even with all those unanswered questions,
Yeah.
I think this case really forces us to think about some uncomfortable realities
Right.
about crime and violence.
This isn't just a story in the news.
Yeah.
It's a real tragedy
Yeah,
that makes you really think about people.
right.
What makes someone go down a path like this?
Yeah, is it just one thing?
Yeah.
A bunch of bad choices?
Right. Or is it something deeper?
We talked about Cooksey's past.
Yeah.
With that conviction for manslaughter and armed robbery. I mean, does that tell us anything?
I mean, it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
It's tempting to look back
Right.
and try to connect the dots.
Yeah, like if only this had happened.
Exactly.
Would things have been different?
Yeah, but people are complicated.
Right.
We can guess about what might have led to this.
Right, like his past, his mental state.
Right, his environment.
But we can't go back in time.
Exactly. We can't change what happened.
Yeah, and it's easy to get caught up in those what-ifs.
For sure.
But it's so important to remember the people who are really affected by all this.
Victims.
Yeah, the victims and their families.
And their families, yeah.
We can't forget about their pain and their loss.
Absolutely.
And how hard it is to heal and move forward.
That's right. And we talked about Andrew Remillard.
Yeah.
Who left behind a wife and a child.
Yeah, and Christopher Cameron, whose partner was pregnant.
Right, and just real.
Yeah.
Whose sister was connected to Cooksey.
It's just awful. And as we wait for this trial...
Right, it's been so long.
It's been delayed so many times. Yeah.
It makes you realize that the justice system,
right,
it's important.
Yeah.
But it can't really fix everything.
It can't heal those wounds.
No, they can't.
The trial might give some answers.
Right.
Some accountability, maybe.
Yeah.
But real justice for the victims and their families.
Yeah.
It might look different,
What do you mean?
Like finding ways to honor their memory.
Okay.
Supporting the people they left behind.
Yeah.
Trying to prevent something like this from happening again.
So at the end of all of this,
yeah,
where does that leave us?
I think this case really makes us think.
Yeah.
About crime and punishment and how there aren't always easy answers.
Right.
Sometimes there just isn't a good explanation.
Yeah, it's a reminder that there's real evil in the world.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it just leaves a path of destruction.
Yeah. And it's hard to understand.
It is.
But I think we have to try.
Yeah.
We have to learn from these tragedies.
Right.
Support the victims and do what we can.
To create a world where this kind of violence doesn't happen.
Because that's really all we can hope for.
I think so.